Welcome to Later Con's Influencing Marketing panel. I'm Stephanie McNeal. I'm a Deputy News Director at Buzzfeed News and a reporter on internet culture and influencers specifically. I love influencer culture. I love influencer marketing, and I think this whole culture and ecosystem is the most fascinating thing in the world. So I am so excited to talk to 3 influencers today and really get deep on exactly how this marketplace works. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I would love it if each of you could give a short introduction to our audience about yourself. Aysha, do we want to start with you?
Sure. Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Aysha and I'm a YouTube and social media creator. I've been doing this for about 3 years full time now, but I started my channel in 2011, so I've been online for a long time. I create beauty and lifestyle content and just kind of share my culture, my faith, and just, a different, I guess, image of what beauty is on the internet. And I absolutely love it.
Hi, I'm Kayley. I work on both the brand and influencer side of the equation. So I've been a content creator for, I guess, as long as Instagram has been around, a long time. But most of my experience comes from the agency and brand side. I have my own agency called Hermana Agency, where we connect the dots between influencers and brands. And I also work as a TikTok strategist. So work on helping brands find the way to going viral on TikTok, managing content on TikTok. And one of my notable clients there is Some Good News, which is John Krasinski's show that he started during quarantine.
That's a great show. Thanks, Kayley. All right, and finally, Yummer Time Boys.
Oh, hey.
Yes, hello, I am Brock, one half of Yummer Time.
And I am Chris Lynn, and we are Yummer Time together. We've been doing this since 2014. The type of topics that we talk about range from just typical lifestyle in our life to beauty and skincare, especially from our own perspective, to lots of food and more food and more food.
And everything through the lens of a contemporary gay couple now living in New York. We just share kind of everything that's going on in our life and lifestyle.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I'm so happy to have all of you guys. And I think a fun way to get this conversation started is let's go back to the beginning. And one of the questions that some of our readers were wondering about was, what does it take to actually make this your career? At what point did you hit enough followers, enough engagement, where you really started getting enough marketing deals that you realized, oh, I could do this full time? Guys, you want to start with you?
Sure. We were very fortunate being a dual income household at the time. So actually after we made our first $75, I said, oh, well, we can really do this. I'm going to quit my job in advertising and let's just see what we can make of this.
And that was very early on, 2014. I think we were about 16,000 followers at the time. So we just decided that it was something that we could, put our, energy into, and hopefully it would come to fruition. And I went full time about a year later. And so we were probably just shy of
about 100,000,
maybe
or so.
A little less of that than that, and then it's been our full time ever since.
That's so interesting because I think a lot of times people think that you need to have a huge platform before you can start actually making money. But I mean, 16,000, that's pretty micro, but people, I think there still are great deals that can be happening for a micro influencer as well.
Absolutely.
I think really just having the drive and the vision of where you want to end up is super helpful. And talking about it now and saying it was $75 that really flipped the switch, I think demeans it a little bit because we knew where we wanted to end up and had a lot of goals that we wanted to reach with Yummer Time.
And I went full-time freelance a few years ago, but what I will say from the influencer side of things, so as a content creator and brands paying me to share their products on my page or to do these partnerships, this will be my first month. I'm at 9,000 followers on Instagram, 40K on TikTok, and it'll be the first month that I'm going to be surpassing my income from the agency with my content creation income. So I'm not full-time as an influencer per se yet, but it is matching my income at this point from the brand perspective as well, which I think is pretty interesting because, like you said, you don't need to have millions or even hundreds of thousands of followers to be making good money doing this.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Congrats. That's an awesome benchmark. Aysha, what about you?
So my story is a little different. I started my YouTube channel when I was 16 years old. And back then, I mean, if you were making money off of YouTube, like you had to be in the million range. So I didn't really think of it as a career choice until actually I was almost finished my university career. And I think at that point I had around 60,000 subscribers on YouTube or so, definitely under 10K on Instagram. But I honestly didn't even know how to make money. So it was through an internship with like a YouTube multi-channel network that taught me that I could actually make money from it. So when I graduated, I just kind of like went for it. And like that first year, I was still that broke like college student. But then it just, something switched. I feel like the second that I actually had time and energy to be consistent with my content, that's when everything took off. So while I was in university, although I had, you know, a larger following per se, I wasn't investing my time into it as much as I did after, when I didn't have, you know, something else to worry about. And once that consistency just kind of like, you know, appeared and I started being more consistent with my content, that's when all the brand partnerships kind of started. And I would say it was around 120,000 subscribers or so when I saw like a sustainable, like consistent income coming in, and I was very comfortable with not, you know, finding other work.
That kind of relates to this starting your influencer career, getting those first deals. Someone asked us, what should they know or think about when cold pitching themselves to brands or sending that email, introducing themselves? You know, I know that sometimes these deals come from the brand, will reach out to you, but I know a lot of times you guys pitch yourselves out. So do you have any tips for that? What was that first experience like?
I guess two things or two tips that I would give. The first is to make sure that you have some sort of relationship with the brand before pitching them, whether it's you already use the products and you love them, you've already created content with their products before, or something as simple as making sure that you're following them on every social platform. I can't tell you the number of times that influencers will reach out and they're not following the brand that they are pitching. And it's just like a very basic, small thing, but can mean the difference between a yes or a no upon a first glance on a pitch. My second tip would be to be specific about how you want to collaborate with that brand. So rather than just saying, hey, here's who I am, I would love to work with you, give them some ideas of what type of content you would want to do with that brand, because I think it makes it a lot easier for brands to say yes or no when you're already giving them the vision of what you want to do with them versus putting all of that work into their hands and just saying, hey, I want to collab.
I mean, I feel like people, at least a lot of influencers when first starting out, I feel like they assume that, you know, once you reach a certain point, brands are just going to always reach out to you. And while that could be true, like I still reach out to some brands that I really love and want to work with. So there's no shame in that. And I feel like the more you put yourself out there, the more you're just going to continue to see that success. So I think definitely either DMing brands on Instagram and then getting their contact information and reaching out, or just, I don't know, asking a friend for a contact also works.
But I honestly think that on top of that, it's knowing your worth and not being afraid to ask for what you want. I think a lot of times, you know, when you see big brands, you think of them in terms of, you know, having so much more power over you in terms of if you're a small influencer. But if you want a certain thing out of it, if you want an exchange, if you want a fee, I feel like you should be unafraid to just ask for it and what you think is right for you.
Yeah, going off that, I think a lot of our peers are afraid to ask for what they think they're worth, or kind of work on the fee while they're building the relationship. And at the end of the day, I think really making sure that you're sharing an even playing field with a brand comes out with a much more successful product and long-term relationship in general.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Kind of piggybacking off of that, I think one of the most interesting but also the most challenging things about bringing ads into your content is figuring out how to make it feel genuine, right? How to make it not feel like an ad. We've all seen plenty of people on Instagram who don't do great at that. And we see plenty of people who do amazing, and they really work with brands that, fit into their content well, and they are able to kind of have the creativity to blend it in. Do you have any advice for people who, might have a platform where they haven't put any ads on it and they don't want their platform to feel disingenuous or feel like they're, doing ads that aren't true to their audience? And how do you blend the ad in?
For sure. I think like if you're already thinking about wanting to discuss brands, especially when you have sponsorships, I think already folding that into your narrative where you're talking about brands, talking about products, it feels so much more natural when it's an ongoing thing that you're talking about beauty brands, beauty brand, and then suddenly you have a sponsorship. It almost builds that authenticity as well as the credibility of what you're talking about.
I think also this is assuming that you're in the business to kind of build your own brand and kind of create this lifestyle versus just in it to make money, in which case I'm sure you can snap up any campaign that is thrown your way. So really, if you have an interest in the product, asking to try it prior to, if it's a beauty product, and really kind of establishing a connection with the product, even if it is new to you, prior to signing on to a project.
I also just want to say, like, we always have thought of ourselves as like a mini marketing agency when we've worked with brands and like tried to understand their objectives when they're, wanting to have a post on our channel. And it really comes to the fact of, how do we get creative with this? How do we share this with our audience? But how did we also make it worth our while to come up with something that feels more full-fledged or just feels super natural in our everyday?
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think that you can tell when the product is something that the influencer isn't super interested in. And I also, one of my favorite things is I love when an influencer that you might follow for, say, fashion or beauty does a collab with something that seems totally random, but then you realize it's something they love. Like, like some influencers are like, have sponsorships for like Dunkin' because they just really love Dunkin', and it's like feels really genuine, because it's something they talk about all the time.
To add on top of that, I think a lot of the work is also done like outside of the brand partnership. So it's like working on your own content to ensure that you have that strong relationship with your audience already, to the point that they will trust that regardless of what advertisement or sponsorship you're going to do, it is true to your like values and your beliefs and like what you just like love to share anyways. So if you're someone who always talks about skincare, always talks about beauty, and for example, a brand that you have mentioned on your channel before wants to sponsor you, then when that content, that sponsored content comes out, your audience is like, oh, cool. Like, you talk about that all the time. So it's great seeing you actually work with that brand now, and they get excited about it. So a lot of the work definitely has to be done just like making sure that your audience trusts you.
I always like to encourage influencers that I work with to be a fangirl before you're even paid to talk about these products. So let's say Fenty Beauty is like your absolute favorite beauty brand and you would love to work with them. Well, then create the content that you would as if they were already paying you to do that, so that when you do get those sponsorships, it's not going to feel like an ad to your audience because they already know how much you love that brand and those products.
Do you ever take audience feedback into account with brand deals in terms of, if people say, hey, you're doing too many ads or you're doing ones that don't fit your brand or stuff like that? Do you like take that push? Like, because I feel like the best influencers, their audience wants to support them through advertising. And so they take into account what their audience wants to see. You know what I mean?
Having a conversation with the brand really helps. Like sometimes brands will come with, a deck where basically they have an entire script that they want you to follow and key talking points and stuff like that. And it doesn't really give you the freedom to create the type of content that your audience will like relate to and resonate with the most. So I think it's having those honest conversations with the brand, or, if it's a manager or whatever who's having those conversations, letting them know that like, yes, it is a partnership, but you have to make sure your voice is actually being heard, and you want your content to speak to your audience first and foremost, because that's the only way the brand is then going to get their return back on that, piece of content. So it's just making sure that the brand doesn't want you to be like some kind of like actress. Like at the end of the day, we are real people, and that's why people follow us. So we can't just be paid to read your script.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that was a really good point. And adding on to that, I think that if you are getting feedback from your audience around, I think what's been most recent, brand ethics and brands diversity and all of these other values beyond the product, which is what I'm seeing more and more of in terms of feedback, to bring that back to the brand and not be afraid to share screenshots of comments or conversations or DMs that you have with your followers and bring that feedback to the brand's attention, because that is one of the best ways to encourage a brand to make change is if they're seeing from the influencers that they're directly working with that their audiences are bringing these things up. It puts pressure on the brand to actually give an answer for those things or to create internal change.
That is such a great point. I totally agree. And I feel like as influencers, you do have a bigger voice in that you can really enact change by showing brands like, hey, this is where you're failing, more so than the average consumer for sure. One more question on brands and then we'll change topics. Someone asked us if they have a smaller brand, let's say a small business, a small company, really wants to work with influencers, but obviously don't have as big of a platform as some of the other people. Do you guys have any tips for how to catch your eye or how to pitch influencers in a way that will get them noticed?
Again, it's a lot of the similar tips that I would give to influencers who are pitching brands to say, build relationships, like make sure you're following these influencers, make sure you know what they're actually about. It is not very appealing when a brand reaches out and they send you a pitch, but if they would have just followed you for a couple days and seen your content, they would know that it wouldn't fit with what you do. So building those relationships goes both ways, and really understanding like how you want that influencer to be a part of your brand. And then I would also say, this is something we've briefly touched on from the influencer perspective, which is receiving creative briefs that detail everything that you need to say. And I think brands really need to start letting go of a little bit of the control and recognizing that these influencers have the influence that they have for doing the content that they know performs well with their audience. And so trusting influencers to create that content that they know is going to perform best with their followers versus providing a script. Because if you want full creative control over an ad, you should be hiring a photographer, models, an ad director. Like you should be hiring a full team to produce those ads if you want full creative control. If you want to partner with influencers, you need to let go of some of that creative control and let them do the best thing that the thing that they know how to do best.
Such a great point.
I think piggybacking off of that, really, I think it's also important for especially smaller brands to kind of take the time at the beginning to do your due diligence, as you mentioned, and really take the time because you're starting a new brand. You want to start off successfully, and really the content that is going to be created at the beginning could really dictate where you go as a smaller brand. Especially with outreach, make sure that you at least learn the influencer's name, because these mass emails with hello dear, hi there, or even for the two of us, hi Yummer Time. Yummer Time is not our name, it's our account.
Yeah.
So really just taking the time so that you are actually fostering these intimate relationships as a small brand while you have the time to really touch on as many people as possible.
When it comes to small businesses, like having an open mind with the type of content or just type of relationship that you want to have with an influencer. Like don't, reach out to them and expect that they're going to do X, Y, and Z for you. And you don't technically really have the budget or the resources to kind of support them back. So I think just being open with them, saying, I want you to try my product if you would like. And that's kind of it. Like, let them play around with it. Let them just kind of have that initial relationship with your company. And then in the future, who knows, that influencer might really love your product and may share it without any, they don't want anything in return. So, an example, a small business reached out to me a couple years ago. And unfortunately they didn't have the resources to, partake in a relationship at the fact that they wanted to, like they wanted posts and different things, but I really loved the brand. I really loved the product. So we made it work, and we actually created like our own products together. So it was a whole other relationship that we were able to cultivate out of that. And it just brought them so much more success. And it was a way that I got to do something that I was really proud and genuinely just supportive of. And they, you know, got to, you know, open their small business to a whole other audience. So just having that open mind and not expecting way more than you think you deserve. Just take it easy.
Yeah.
I want to move in a little bit more to actually the day-to-day work of influencing, because I know that so many people are going to be watching this who are aspiring influencers. And you guys obviously have been working in the industry for a long time. And one of the biggest questions I personally have is, how do you maintain over years the creativity, the content creation, getting new ideas? How do you deal with that burnout and constantly making sure you're on top of the new trends and, you know, making it so your audience sticks with you? Because it's hard to come up with new content every single day. And you guys, you know, you got to do it. So I would love to hear what you guys, how you get inspired.
A lot of my content now is education based, since I speak from both the influencer and the agency side. So I kind of come up with my content based on frequently asked questions that I get in my DMs. And then from my content creator side, I try to think of more like documenting versus creating. I have like a lifestyle page. So instead of trying to come up with new things to create every day, I'm like, okay, what is happening in my life? What am I doing? How can I document that in a way that is content creation? And then in terms of inspiration, TikTok has been my biggest source of inspiration over the past few months. Teenagers are so interesting, and I just like could spend, like, that's how I get ideas for new videos and outfits and everything. So I credit a lot of my inspiration to TikTok.
So one thing that I definitely wanted to get your guys' perspective on is we had so many big movements on Instagram lately with the Black Lives Matter movement, with Blackout Tuesday, and there was this big push to have more Black influencers be recognized, to have equal pay, to have Black-owned businesses in the spotlight. And I have been reading a lot of things from a lot of influencers who are saying, we don't want this momentum to stop. We want it to keep going. We've been seeing people sharing, you know, with smaller Black, you know, bigger influencers sharing with smaller Black influencers about, you know, how to get their careers started, all of these tips. We've seen these initiatives where people are saying that they're going to ask brands how diverse the people who are representing their products are before signing on. I would love if you guys have any more ideas as to how we can make sure that this space becomes more equitable for everyone, and this momentum will keep going for years to come.
Start. So yeah, everything that's basically has been going on this entire summer has been a lot of what my experiences have been in the influencer community. So I knew very early on that, you know, it would be more difficult for me to get brand partnerships than someone who is not Black. And that was just kind of like facts that I had to deal with, whether that was in the influencer industry, in my, you know, university career, everything. So I feel like, you know, within my content, that's always been very apparent. Like, I work with brands that continue to have a diverse message and diverse voice with whether their content or their products and everything. But at the same time, there were also brands that came out that probably weren't doing as much as they should have been before all of this happened. So it's like having those conversations with those brands, and I have personally emailed some brands, DM'd them, you know, had phone calls with these brands about their lack of inclusivity and me being a partner of them, like how that could be, you know, bad on my reputation as well. So I think it can be uncomfortable to talk about these things with brands, because at the end of the day, like, you could be depending on this income, but I think it's so important, and it says more about the brand what their response is to all of this than, you know, than them just being silent in general. So I I love seeing, you know, all of the support that Black-owned businesses are getting now and all of the support influencers are getting now. I think it's just kind of like a huge wake-up call for the whole industry at just how, you know, bad things were in the past. And I'm really happy that things are moving to, you know, a more inclusive space in general, not only just for Black lives, but, you know, other marginalized communities as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that has been really exciting is I feel like there has been, I feel like Instagram has just been a really great way for people to spread the message, not only about, you know, influencers talking about it on their stories, but I've seen people create Instagram accounts. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Pull Up for Change, shout out. It's like my favorite Instagram account. I think what she did was incredibly brilliant. If you aren't familiar, it's a woman who has been soliciting for followers to DM brands to see their diversity statistics for their workforce. And she has gotten like hundreds of thousands of followers, tons of huge brands have responded, and like, what a cool way to use Instagram, you know, what a great way to make a difference through Instagram. And, you know, even, you know, I see all of the graphics people are making, all of the illustrations people are making. It's just a great way to spread the message of change and, you know, it's just a great way to do activism, I think. Do you guys have any other thoughts on what we all as a community in this influencer community can be doing to make sure that marginalized voices are heard more?
You know, I think it was a major wake-up call, and kind of going back to one of the previous questions about what to share and what not to share, really sharing our views and getting into politics was something that we did not speak about on Yummer Time for years, and I think really to our own detriment, because we were leaving out a part of ourselves that was very important. And we immediately reached out to every brand that we had partnerships with just to make sure that there was some sort of inclusivity and diversity and action plan throughout everything moving forward. And it's something that we possibly dropped the ball on before, but now it's like a much heavier vetting process to really make sure that we are creating a space for really everyone instead of just paying attention to the space that we're filling ourselves.
And also, like, I think, you know, on top of, you know, constantly sharing other voices and, you know, really kind of also just listening and really kind of, you know, being a subscriber or a follower to other accounts that, you know, need that. Oh, my cat just got a little into something. I think on top of that, you know, it's not for everyone, but for us, we've actually made it a part of like our entire business plan now. For every single partnership that we have every single month a specific charity or nonprofit, often most of the time focusing on marginalized communities, you know, giving back our proceeds, what we get, to, you know, all of these charities. I think in June, you know, we made sure that we were focused on the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, which, you know, particularly fights for Black trans individuals and, you know, the trans community at large. And, you know, I think that that's like ways for, you know, you can get involved without necessarily just having to, you know, be like out in the streets. Maybe you aren't able to during a pandemic. There are so many ways for you to be sharing, for you to be advocating, for you to just be also donating your time and your money. There's just a lot of ways.
Vote.
And vote.
Just important, like when influencers are having these conversations, white influencers with brands, you know, asking what other influencers are involved in this campaign. Something as simple as going through a brand's Instagram feed is usually enough to tell you within 1 or 2 swipes. But not just then saying no to the brand because they don't meet your standards, but telling them why you are not interested in working with them or what they can do to make it so that you would be proud to partner with that brand. Because again, this is where I think the conversations are so important in helping educate brands what they can be doing better.
Yes, I actually agree with that. And I ran into a situation not long after, you know, everything happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, where a brand did reach out, and I just knew based on their Instagram and like even just their products that they just have not been the most inclusive. And they were reaching out about a certain product that did actually happen to have my shade, and then I realized everything else didn't. So it was uncomfortable to be like, you know what, I can't work with you right now, but I did offer that, you know, it would be great to see you extend your shade range, especially with everything that's been going on. I think it'll only do more good. And they totally understood that. You know, the person that I was talking to realized and was like, you know, we are working on this. So maybe in the future, we'll be able to work together in the, you know, later on once they are a little bit more inclusive. So it's like seeing that the brands are actually doing the work, and again, not canceling them right off the bat, or just saying, I'm not going to work with you because you're not diverse, giving them, you know, a suggestion and maybe like a timeline, say within the next 6 months, I'd love to see you be more inclusive in your, I don't know, marketing campaigns or the products that you have. And it just makes more sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that do that, the more people are going to realize that, you know, they need to change, and, you know,
exactly,
every industry is going to be better for it. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to end with a forward-looking one. What is your guys' biggest predictions or hopes or dreams or anything for where this industry is headed, let's say for the next 5 years or so? What is something that you really think is going to happen or that you would like to see happen? You can take a second to think.
Boy.
Gosh, I think that one thing for me is I'm loving how public activism is becoming on social media, and I really am excited to see that continue to share really like different facets of your life versus just what you maybe think your audience wants to think, and in doing so, really building an audience that will stick with you and really just be able to collect different points of view and just kind of really understand where other people's experiences have come from.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think what this entire pandemic, and this honestly all of 2020 has taught us, is that people really connect to and resonate with just, you know, less curated content. I feel like ever since TikTok just kind of like soared up there, people realize that they just want to follow everyday people. They want to see things that they relate to in their everyday lives. Like, we don't want to see super curated feeds, like everything's perfect. Your hair is like not, you know, not one strand is out of place, just like stuff like that. I feel like we're moving far and far away from, you know, overly filtering your Instagram feed, you know, the curated, like, you know, all of the filters match perfectly. I think we're just every single year moving away from that and kind of adapting to that. I feel like that's really what's going to change in the next 5 years. Like, we're already kind of on that, but I think lifestyle content is just going to take over, and just you're going to see more everyday people that may not be considered beautiful in old, you know, society standards. It's just going to be real and authentic, and I love that. So I like can't wait, and I really hope that's what the trends move along with. But yeah, honestly, TikTok really changed everything.
It really did. I feel like that's honestly where the social media landscape is going, is like small bite-sized video format. It used to be video at all panels for the past few years, and now it's like the shortest video that you can make like a punch that is truly, I think, where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And Gen Z is all about the like unfiltered, like, you know, taking selfie videos from weird angles, like none of the millennial, like, you know, very curated sort of feed. Their feeds are just chaos. It's definitely the way of the future, I think.
Yeah, and I think adding on to everything that we've talked about from like the business perspective in influencer marketing, I think we're going to see in the next few years that this industry is being taken more seriously. It's still a very new industry, and there is absolutely no standards in terms of brands reaching out to influencers, gifted campaigns, paid campaigns, how many followers should you have to be paid? Like, there's no standards at all. And I think because of that, There's a lot of brands that take advantage of content creators. It's just not really seen as like a professional industry still at this point. It's like, what do? You're a YouTuber. Oh, that must be so fun. That's cool. But people don't like see it as an actual career or a job just yet. And I think that is changing. And I think it is becoming something that people take more seriously. The number of times I've seen young content creators, TikTokers with like 100K followers doing campaigns that are gifted for like a $20 product because they simply don't know better. There's nobody in this industry that's, necessarily teaching them. There's not the standards. And so I think what we're going to see over the next few years as this like generation of digital beings is coming about, the generation of influencers, is that this industry is going to be taken more seriously, and it will be easier to like build a career in this industry because there will be more of a standard, I think.
I definitely agree with you. I feel like that's such a great note to end on, because I know that you guys love this industry. Obviously, everyone at Later loves this industry. I love this industry, and I think that you're totally right that people are taking it more seriously and people are understanding everything that goes into it and how intricate it is. And you guys are all a very important part of that. And I think this was a really great conversation. I'm so happy that you joined me.
Bye.